Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live, our weekly show right here on the internet. And well, this week I wanted to start off by first plugging our social media. So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and also over on TikTok. And this week we're going to be doing something a little bit different. And that's why I wanted to plug our social media first. Because this week it is completely computer related. And, let me get rid of my headset there. There we go. Um, what I wanted to do for this week, and if you've seen the title of this week's episode, you might have an idea. Uh, but it deals with AI, artificial intelligence. And over the last few months, there has been this whole surge in using artificial intelligence to generate artwork. And there's websites now where you can go to it and for example, one of them that I used this week, and I also put a link to it in the show notes, is called Stable Diffusion. And basically, what you do is it is a text to image AI. You can put in a text prompt, and what it does is it basically goes out and searches for images on the internet and then tries to figure out how to make artwork based off what you tell it to make. So you can come up with any sort of crazy thing. So I thought I would test it with greenhouse and flower and seasonal terms and things like that. But also, since Bob's Market is searchable on the internet, I thought I'll just throw those terms at it too and see what it can come up with. So let's jump right in and we'll take a look at these. So again, it's AI, it's just a bunch of computer code running algorithms trying to figure out what it's trying to interpret whenever I type in something. Now, I do have to preface this with the fact that a lot of these free AIs, like the ones that I used, they aren't as advanced as some of the ones that you have to pay for. There's AIs now that basically it's going to replace stock photography. For years, and I've used stock photography on our own website for like a blog post, if I need a picture of a grassy lawn in the middle of wintertime when I'm writing a blog post, I can't go out and take that picture myself. So I go to a stock photography website and find an image that I can use. With these AIs now, you can basically go in and create an image that is one of a kind that you can then use as stock photography. And the great thing about that is because it's a one-time creation, that means you don't have to, or it doesn't fall into all the legal loopholes and everything that there is with using stock photography. You always have to give, the creator credit unless they specifically say that they don't require credit for their photo. So a lot of what I use is royalty-free images, so we don't have to pay to use them, and we're free to use them commercially. So I always have to read through the licensing whenever I use images like that. So anyhow, up first, I ask it just to give me pictures of mums in a garden. So since it's fall, I thought I would do sort of fall themed. So yeah, this is what it gave me for mums in a garden. These are 4 different images. It kind of got, the general idea that chrysanthemums are a mound of flowers. And a couple of those are really great. One kind of looks like dahlias. The 2 that are kind of on the upper left and lower right, it kind of got the general idea of mums, But something that's interesting, if you zoom in on those images, it has the mound of flowers, but then it has one stalk coming down from it. So it understood a chrysanthemum as a flower, but it didn't quite understand the anatomy of the flower. But still, I mean, amazing. And then also the one on the bottom left, you got a mum there in a pot, which looks amazing. But then you've got kind of these disembodied mounds of flowers beside of it. You know, it understood that mums are a mound of flowers, but didn't really understand what's attached to it at the bottom. The next image turned out really good, and I specifically asked it for a greenhouse in the autumn. So this is what it came up with when I requested a greenhouse in the autumn. So we've got sort of some fall flowers there. Sort of looks like a chrysanthemum, maybe some sort of hydrangea or something. We've got a planter in the back. But if you notice outside in the background, it has fall scenery. So yeah, that's a very good take on one. The AI understands what a greenhouse is, that, you know, it's glass panes. It got the right season, and yeah, the flower mix inside is pretty good. Some of these are kind of frightening, like when you ask it. And something that I didn't understand going in, or that just kind of blew me away, is it's not going out and finding images of this stuff and smashing it together, like photoshopping it. It's coming up with this from scratch. Like every single pixel in that image was generated by the AI. So that kind of is more obvious in the next picture, which I just asked it for pansies in a greenhouse. So here is a pot of pansies in a greenhouse. And yeah, you can sort of see that it understands what the basic concept of a pansy is, but it kind of lacks that definition of the petals. So with pansies, you know, you got the one kind of big petal in the back, the two smaller ones, and then the one down at the bottom. Or is it two? My AI is messed up now. But yeah, it just kind of does it kind of as a blur. But the leaf shape on the pansies there is actually really good, and it's pretty proportional to the pot. Um, so yeah, that is pretty interesting. And there we go. Had a spammy comment pop up in the on YouTube that I had to take care of. Okay, so yeah, that is pansies in a greenhouse. The next thing that I thought was, well, let's branch off from there and let's ask it something totally out of left field. So I said pansies in a thunderstorm, because who would have a picture of that? And this is what it gave me. So yep, those are pansies. And it looks like a Matrix Morpheus, where you've got the purple and yellow, so that's really good. Um, and then you've got bolt of lightning in the background, so yep, those are definitely pansies in a thunderstorm. And again, the detail of the flowers is just amazing. Some of them there are kind of missing some petals, and some of them look kind of merged together into one sort of flower. Uh, but yeah, that is really good. Um, the next thing that I asked it for, and this is where I got really specific, I asked it for pansies in the autumn, but in the style of anime. So you can also specify like an art style. So here are 4 scenes of anime pansies in a garden. And yeah, I thought these were just beautiful. So yeah, this is something that I could probably use like writing blog posts. Um, so yeah, you might start seeing more artistic blog posts. But again, this is something that you can go in and play around with as the art styles. Um, the next thing that I decided to ask it is I thought, well, Bob's Market and Greenhouses is out on the internet. There is some other Bob's Markets, and one of them is really famous. It was in the Fast and Furious movie, so I knew if I just typed Bob's Market that I would probably get something related to that. So I specifically put Bob's Market and Greenhouses, and that was it for the query. And this is what it gave me. And yeah, it kind of gets the basic idea of a greenhouse, and it looks like one of our stores. I mean, this could easily be like our Belpre Market. You kind of have to squint and maybe cover one eye, but yeah, it's close. It's in the ballpark. And again, this is completely AI generated. Um, the next one is really interesting because, I'm just throwing out ideas. I said Bob's Market and Greenhouses in the fall, in the future. Now that in the future, that kind of brings in a whole like sci-fi aspect, I guess you could say. So these are 4 images that it gave me for that. And yeah, the top left one is like this produce market, but in the background, it might be kind of hard to see, is like this whole like futuristic city. So it's like, yeah, maybe. And then the other ones are again kind of greenhouse, garden center, produce markets. But it has like this really cool kind of Gothic and Victorian style architecture to the greenhouse, which I thought was really neat. Um, it's able to understand, kind of the different architectural styles of greenhouses. And usually, if you look for like post-apocalyptic sort of futuristic stuff, that's generally what you get. Um, I'm thinking sort of like Blade Runner and that style of architecture. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. This is where things get really weird, okay, with the next ones, because something you can also do with these AIs, and it takes longer to process, so some of these took like a half hour to run. Um, but something you can do is upload a photo so it has something to go off of as a starting point, and then you can tell it what parameters to use. Uh, so I uploaded this photo. So it's a group shot of all the Barnes brothers and Bob. So it's Bobby, Scott, Rick, Jeff, John, and Bob. And I told it to do a photo of them trick or treating. So it's going to take this image and say, what's trick or treating? What's all that? This is what it came up with. So yeah, I guess they've got on some costumes. It looks like Scott has changed into a woman. And Rick, I don't know if that is hair or like a plant growing out of his head. And then you have Jeff with like a purple mask on. And yeah, the rest of the image, it's, yeah, that's interesting. So this is where it gets comical, is where you can upload images. So the next one that I did is an older film photo that I have of Bob. And he's out in the greenhouse holding a Pepsi and a clipboard. And the prompt that I used for this was just to take this image and do it in the style of a Renaissance painter. So it sat there and chewed on it for a while. And this is what we got. So that is that image in the style of a Renaissance painter. And something that I've noticed with these AIs is the one thing that they can't draw really well is hands. So you'll notice Bob has 5 fingers in this image, which kind of made me think of the Princess Bride, you know, like, oh, my name is Indigo Montoya. Ah. but, but yeah, and then I do like the beard and everything. So I'm kind of sporting a beard right now. Maybe maybe as the webcam's not on. But I thought it was interesting because it even got the detail of like the shirt difference between now and Renaissance. So he's got a t-shirt on underneath of a maroon shirt, but then converting it to a Renaissance image, it's a white shirt with like a collar and looks like it has buttons or something. And then it's changed it to a long sleeve, so it's got a little bit of the sleeve poking out. And that just blew my mind. And the greenhouse detail is amazing too, with the plants and just the background. And you can really see, I mean, if you switch back and forth between them, sort of the difference between them. His pants do kind of change from blue jeans into a plant. So that's kind of interesting. Okay. Now this one gets really crazy because I took this image and said to do it in the style of Picasso. So here is that image in the style of Picasso. Which it turned out to be kind of a fall image. It's got it almost looks like some like Rudbeckia or something there in the background. And then it's got like some oak leaves or some kind of leaves have changed, and he's reading a book. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. So from that to that, when asking for Picasso. These last two, they're just text to images. And since we're coming up on Halloween, I thought I would do something Halloween related. But I had to tie it into this area to see what the AI knows about our local area. So for the first one, I just asked for Mothman carving a jack-o'-lantern. And this is what I got. A Mothman jack-o'-lantern, which I think looks pretty daggone cute. The mouth on the jack-o'-lantern's kind of freaky, but yeah, I can kind of see that. It's also interesting that the pumpkin has 2 stems that kind of make up the legs of our Mothman there. And keeping with the Mothman theme, this last one, I told it to do Mothman at Halloween, but then with the qualifier of digital art. So it's more of an illustration type image. And this one, when I saw it, I was like, wow. It just knocked it out of the park. I mean, that's creepy. That would kind of give me nightmares at night. And to think a computer came up with that. So going out and searching for Mothman images and looking at all of them, and also Halloween, that's what it came up with. And yep, I'll just leave that with you and let it haunt your dreams. So that is, oh, let me close it there. That is AI generated art. And as I said, I put a link to the one that I used, which is called Stable Diffusion. And it's over at a website called huggingface.co, is where it's hosted. Which, yeah, it was pretty fun to play around with. So I've got a link to that in the show notes, and you can go over there and give it your own prompts and see what you come up with. Well, the last thing that I wanted to do this week is take a quick look at the weather, because, surprise, we had a warm snap this week. It's 75 degrees out right now. So last week I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to do the weather anymore because we're getting into cold and it's not going to be good gardening times, because winter's here and, deep dark depression, that sort of thing. But yeah, we've had a pretty warm snap the last few days. We're going to get some rain tomorrow, and then it's going to cool off a little bit, but still it's going to be pretty pleasant heading into the weekend. And then it's looking like on the long-term forecast that we're going to have some rain coming up on Sunday. And then heading into next week, some rain on Monday, but then we're going to jump right back up into the 70s. Sort of at the beginning of November. Which, yeah, that's kind of typical. This is our surprise kind of return of summer for a few weeks right before we get into actual winter. So yeah, that kind of happens every year. And, well, that is all that I have for this week. Again, this is something that was sort of out of left field. I came up with this idea for this episode like literally a few days ago because I am not good at calendars. And when I came up with the marketing plan for the next months up until January, I kind of forgot about this week for an episode of Bob's Live. Just sort of, skipped it. So next week, what I'm going to be doing is, lost my mouse there. Next week's episode of Bob's Live, I want to do a Halloween episode, but Halloween's the day before. So for next week's episode of Bob's Live, we're actually going to be doing it on Monday at 5 p.m. And it's going to be pretty fun. I've got an activity planned and something kind of live, so that way I can watch the chat and we can sort of chat while I work on it and just sort of chill and hang out for Halloween. And Patty commented, "Holy cow!" I just now saw that, and I know exactly where that was. That was the the Mothman. Yeah, that's kind of creepy. And yeah, loving those temperatures. This weather, it has been amazing. I was outside, not working in the garden, but working on some trim work in my house over the weekend. And yeah, it was nice to be able to wheel the table saw outside and do some work outside. And well, until next week on Monday at 5 p.m. when we have our spooky Halloween episode. Until then, keep growing.